is your host, Emmanuel Isaiah Smith. Today's date is Tuesday, July 8th, 2025, and the time is 10:15 p.m. And for those of you who look through my social media pages trying to find out exactly where I am, I'm going to save you some time. I'm going to tell you exactly where I am, so you don't have to go through the nosy hula hoops of jumping through my Facebook posts looking for the location. I am sitting right here in Kendall, Florida, on the corner of Southwest 88th Street, otherwise known as Kendall Drive, and I am sitting here at the corner of Kendall Drive and Southwest 152 Avenue, which leads to the Hammocks neighborhood. So those of you who have known me or in the past who may have not seen me in some years, and you have a score to settle, a beef, or some other disgruntled feeling or emotion, and you wish to spy on me personally, because that's what the title of this video is, espionage, I'm giving you my exact location so you can walk right up to me, look me in the face, and tell me what your problem is. Those of you who are of the mindset and have the fortitude to do so. Now, if you are the kind of person who knew me from years back and you wish to use street theater as an attack mechanism to get back at me for something, this video is not for you. This project is not for you. As a matter of fact, go climb a tree and sit there. Because as I've said in my last video, you have not escaped your ape nature. Okay? And I can't be any clearer than that. And I know a lot of you are around. I can't see you, because a lot of you wear disguises. You use hidden camera mechanisms, and you use a lot of sound boom equipment to watch and listen to me without being detected. Alright? I can smell you. And you know what you smell like? You smell like a nosy, purposeless, degenerate, gang-stalking coward. And I know a lot of you that are popping up around Kendall knew me from 25 years ago. I'm not going to get into the specifics because, quite frankly, I have better things to do with my time. But yes, I'm calling you out. I'm telling you exactly where I am. And this is where I'm going to be tomorrow as well. So if you care to approach me without a disguise and you want to get whatever your issue is out on the table, go ahead. But if not, continue doing that gang stalking garbage and tell your grandkids about it one day. I'd like to tell you, little Jimmy, about the time that I went from this state or that state with my little buddies to Kendall, Florida, because we wanted to spy on and use street theater against that Emmanuel guy who talks about gang stalking. And the reason we wanted to do it is because we knew it'd be safe. Because there's a lot of us out there. And quite frankly, we all band together. There's strength in numbers, little Jimmy. And you know what? We had a good time doing it because he never saw us, not one time. Be sure to tell little Jimmy, you gang stalkers that keep popping up from my past. And gang stalking is not just about people from your past popping up using street theater. Gang stalking is also about people you don't know following a system of signals, cues, vehicular maneuvers, and verbal commands to perpetually find, instigate problems with, and pester someone who has been federally entered into this stinking, cowardly, degenerate program. Be sure to tell little Jimmy, fellas, when you talk about those good times you had doing gang stalking, tell him that you were too scared to show your face to the person you were doing street theater on. Tell them you were too scared to walk up to the person and tell them, you know what? Yeah, I'm a gang stalker. Here's why. Be sure to tell little Jimmy that you squatted in a corner while Emmanuel Isaiah Smith was doing his latest discourse on gang stalking and held up a hidden camera and some walkie-talkie you had hidden somewhere so you could hear it for yourself. Be sure to tell little Jimmy that you responded to a signal that another person gave you so that you would know where to go when safely. And be sure to tell little Jimmy that you know very little about politics, rule of law, economics, good governance, and inalienable rights, because you violate these things on a daily basis, and you do it like cowards. And yes, you are boys, not men. And the women that do it, you're girls. You're not women. So, ladies and gentlemen, this discourse is going to be about espionage. Now, we are going to try our very best to avoid the silly street theater that we are witnessing right now. Okay? What you're witnessing right now is called noise harassment. That silly, childish, disgusting music that you just heard was street theater. It's called noise harassment. Now, I have, in many respects, detailed for you how signaling works. Gang stalking starts like this. It starts with a federal liaison. And these federal liaisons, some of them work in undercover capacities. They start the action. Now, I think that these federal liaisons have earpieces on, or earpieces that are implanted inside of their ear, and they're getting their memos from some federal auxiliary that has an eye on the area via satellite technology and others. And they know the exact location of every targeted individual in any given area, even if it's only one targeted person. And they communicate these messages to these federal liaisons via earpiece. And these federal liaisons use a system of signals to surrounding stalkers so that they will know where to go and when. Now, when these stalkers encounter a targeted individual, they know he's a targeted person and the person that you are supposed to confront, because the targeted individual is pointed out in a clandestine way using a similar system of signaling. Now, That disgusting music that you just heard was both noise harassment and a signal. The signal was, me, Smith, I am here. I am on the corner of Southwest 88th and 152nd Avenue. That was the signal, the loud music. So there are stalkers in my immediate area that know that that kind of music is my signal. Okay? So before this lecture is over, you will hear me say, okay, stalker to my left, stalker to my right, stalker approaching, stalker having just passed. By the time this lecture is over, you are going to hear me describe the various stalkers that come around me because of that music that you just heard. Okay, because of that music you just heard. That was the signal. Okay, that loud music was the signal that I am here. And that car stopped at the red light directly in front of me because that was the point of that maneuver. It wasn't supposed to just drive through, because if it just drives through, then that music could have been signaling anybody for any reason. But that signal was for me specifically, so that car had to stop in front of me for some reason. So the light that's in front of me had to turn red as that particular car playing that particular song and that particular type of music had to stop in front of me at some point so that the surrounding stalkers could hear it and make their way towards me. It was a mobilization mechanism. Now, how was that car made to stop right in front of me? It was stopping at a red light. How can you force a car to stop at a light that is not red but should be red? Easy. In gang stalking, targeted individuals encounter rigged stoplights. Okay? What is a rigged stoplight? So stoplights, modern stoplights, are computerized. Okay? And they're supposed to be set on a timer. Okay? Now, that timer, depending on the busyness of the street, is supposed to have a set time that it's red, a set time that it's green, and a set time that is yellow. The stoplight is also supposed to have a set time for crosswalk activity, and it's supposed to have a set time for right turns and left turns. All of this is supposed to be automated and computerized. But that mechanism of automated and computerized stoplights that are on timers is inconvenient for gang stalkers. The reason that automated lights are inconvenient for gang stalkers is because they have to time the lights as they approach a targeted individual. For example, here on Southwest 88th Street and 152nd Avenue, where I am presently, if this car that sent that signal with the music had just been passing through randomly, it might have just gone right through the green light and it wouldn't have stopped in front of me, alerting surrounding stalkers to my presence. Again, loud music is used as a signal in gang stalking. Okay? Now, by rigging the stoplight, however, okay, and when I say rigging the stoplight, I mean manually operating the stoplight. Okay? There are operators, okay, in the city departments, okay, that deal with city planning, that have access to the control switch for stoplights. So on a whim, a person can manually rig a stoplight and manually operate that same stoplight. Now, mind you, not all stoplights in Miami-Dade County have cameras on top of them, but the ones here where I am do have cameras on top of them. Those cameras can be fairly easily hacked into by third parties. They can also be logged into by third parties. And in conjunction with the manual stoplight operator, they can see who's coming and who's going, and they can manually operate that stoplight depending on who's coming and who's going. Now, for example, this truck that just pulled up with the music, the camera on top of the stoplight was likely logged into at that time. And whoever was logged into that camera was very likely sending a signal of some kind to the manual stoplight operator. And when that particular car was coming at that particular time, the person who logged into that camera likely signaled the manual stoplight operator to turn the light to turn the light red at that particular second, causing the car to stop, causing the car to blare the music right in front of me just minutes after I arrived to this stop after having gotten off the Metro bus. Okay, yes, these are military industrial stratagem that are being used just to harass targeted persons. Okay, we're talking espionage, ladies and gentlemen. Espionage is a system of spying on a person or groups of people for a cause. Now, innovations in espionage started in the 1960s, particularly here in the United States, particularly by the intelligence community here in the United States, to spy on various political dissident groups that existed here in the United States at that time. As you can imagine, over the past 60 years, as technology changes, spying mechanisms change as well. During the 1960s, you had a lot going on. You had various left-wing and right-wing political dissident groups in the United States. You had the hippie movement that was running wild. You had terrorist and semi-terrorist actions against African American populations, for example, church bombings and so forth. You had racial segregation. You had the civil rights movement. You had the school busing conundrum concerning children who were going to public schools riding on segregated buses and so forth. You had debates on the black vote, okay, and you had the Cuban Missile Crisis, okay. You also had the Cold War between the United States and the USSR, also known as Soviet Russia. You had a lot of, okay, got our first stalker running up on a bike, okay, Like I said, I'm gonna be calling those out all night. So you had a lot going on in this country politically. You had McCarthyism, which was basically the belief that any American who didn't adhere to a specific political policy was a communist. And you basically had senators like Senator McCarthy accusing a lot of people of being communists, and it caused a lot of panic in the United States. You had all these political issues going on at the same time. Okay, and there was a lot of propaganda in the United States at those times, in television shows, in comic books, in movies, on the news. There was a lot of anti-Russian, anti-Soviet, anti-communist propaganda going on, and a lot of that spilled over into anti-Russian feelings, xenophobia against Chinese people, xenophobia against the Vietnamese people. And mind you, while all these things, all these political explosions were happening at the same time, we go to war with Vietnam in the midst of all that. So you had all these political, these socio-political, socio-economic conundrums happening at the same time, and America was at war. You see, there were World War III fears happening at this time, because there was still international tension from World War II, which had just concluded probably 25 years prior to the Vietnam War. So in the 1960s, you had all of these things going on at once. And eventually the CIA and the FBI, which are both auxiliaries of the Department of Justice, started implementing these protocols to see who in the United States was communist, who was capitalist, who was anti-government, who was pro-government, who was anti-law enforcement, who was pro-law enforcement, who was anti-segregation, who was pro-segregation, who was anti-civil rights, who was pro-civil rights. And there were these protocols that were put into place by the Department of Justice, one of which was COINTELPRO Operation Hoodwink, which I consider to be the spiritual progenitor to gang stalking. Now, COINTELPRO Operation Hoodwink was a program that basically mobilized citizens as weapons against other citizens, using a similar signaling mechanism, although back then the technology wasn't as sophisticated as it is now. So the signaling mechanisms that they used back in the 1960s against groups like the Ku Klux Klan, the Black Panther Party, the American Communist Party, were not quite as sophisticated as the signaling mechanisms that are used here and now. So, give me 1 second, I have to speak to my significant other. Are you going over to sit down? Okay, I'll meet you over there in a little bit. I'm recording something. So, it was a way of essentially using sabotage tactics by one segment of the population against the political dissident segment of the population, so as to dismantle the dissident groups from the inside out by sabotaging the members of those groups, using tactics that included espionage, that included workplace mobbing, that included various forms of harassment by various governmental auxiliaries, and there were lots of disruption tactics that were going on against the members of those political dissident groups. Now, that program was at some point dismantled. Okay? And the FBI at some point acknowledged, yeah, we used such a program, and here were its auspices. And quite frankly, you can go to the FBI.gov website right now and download the actual documents from COINTELPRO Operation Hoodwink. You can actually download the documents and see exactly how it operated. And it's easy to see that gang stalking is the spiritual descendant of COINTELPRO Operation Hoodwink. Although gang stalking does not necessarily target political dissident groups like COINTELPRO Operation Hoodwink did, but rather gang stalking actually targets private U.S. citizens who may or may not be a part of a dissident group. And it targets them with sickness and disease, because a lot of the signaling mechanism is by liaisons to sick or diseased gang stalkers, and those sick or diseased gang stalkers are signaled to a targeted individual's exact location in an attempt to cause the targeted individual to inhale air, moisture, or other sick or bacterial infested components of that sick or diseased gang stalker, causing the target himself to become sick. And that's the only cause that particular interaction is to have. It's simply to get the target sick, simply to pester the target and or create medical bills for him or her. Another tactic they're using quite a bit these days is synchronized vehicular obstruction of movement. It isn't just pedestrian stalkers that are being signaled towards a targeted person's exact location. Motorists are also signaled by other motorists and by pedestrians to a targeted individual's exact location. In so much that a targeted individual, when crossing the street, is constantly in danger of being run over by a motorist. We got another stalker, just ran up on a scooter. We're going to see a lot of those tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and as I said, I'm going to call them out as I see them. They're going to be going back and forth in front of me all night, because the music that we heard at the beginning of this program was the signal. So they know the approximate location because they were around the area when they heard the music. And that music to them is a signal. So we're going to continue on. Synchronized vehicular obstruction of movement. It can be fairly appropriately classified as attempted vehicular homicide, or in instances where there is a hit and run, where a targeted person is hit by a vehicle and is deceased after the encounter. Vehicular homicide, first-degree murder, state-sanctioned murder, because that car accident was not an accident. It was signaled, and it was caused by a gang stalker behind the wheel of a car who took a signal to someone's exact location and knew to make a right or a left turn in order to hit that person. Okay? It was not a coincidence or some happenstance occurrence where a well-meaning motorist just happened to make a left turn at the exact same time as a targeted person, causing a collision. That is not what's happening here. Staged car accidents are an assassination tactic. Okay? I'll say it again. Staged car accidents are an assassination tactic. And motorists who are being signaled by other motorists, by other pedestrians, and with earpieces, use their vehicles as murder weapons against targeted persons. I'll say that again. Motorists who practice gang stalking and are being signaled by other motorists and pedestrians as to where to turn and when, use their vehicles as murder weapons against targeted persons. Okay? That left turn that caused the near collision was signaled. That was not a coincidence. That turn, that right turn that was a near collision was signaled, not a coincidence. That targeted person that was nearly run over by the scooter on the sidewalk, not a coincidence. That targeted person that was nearly run over by that truck at the stoplight, not a coincidence. These motorists are being signaled. Okay? And there are cowards hiding behind bushes, hiding in apartments and houses with binoculars on, watching the action because they started the signaling with one word, one gesture, one text message, one phone call, or as we saw at the beginning of this video, noise harassment. The loud playing of a specific kind of music, you see. That was supposed to be a signal that a black male was standing at the corner of 152nd and 88th. Okay? That's the way it is here in South Florida. If a specific demographic of person is in a specific area, there has to be some sort of a signal relevant to that person. So here in South Florida, if a motorist is signaling me out to stalkers in the area, they're going to signal me out with rap music, because rap music is overwhelmingly associated with black males, because black males started rap music in the late 1970s, and for at least 30 years after that, it was primarily consumed by black males. There wasn't a black male in America pretty much over that 30-year period that didn't listen to it ever so often, at least, if not just on the radio or at homecoming dances and things like that. So with me, if my stalkers are signaling me out to people, they signal me out with rap music, like what you heard at the beginning. Now, I don't listen to rap music because, quite frankly, I don't identify with it. Okay, I wasn't raised in the kinds of circumstances that a lot of rappers were raised in. So I don't particularly identify with what's being said. I will say this, however, I think that a lot of what rappers did in the 90s and 2000s with keyboards and with music creation software, like FL Studio, for example, okay, and what some of the earlier rap producers did with 808 keyboards, I think a lot of what they did with rap melodies in the 1990s and 2000s was very creative. Now, because I'm talking about gang stalking here, and music was involved in these initial signaling, I'm going to assume again that this car that just pulled up and stopped in front of this stoplight playing R&B this time was another signal that I'm still here. Because R&B, like hip-hop, is overwhelmingly associated with black men. So at first it was the rap music, very loud, that was the signal that a black male was standing here. And then later on they came by with R&B at another rigged stoplight that caused that car to stop right in front of me, playing R&B to signal that I was still here. The next car that pulls up may play another rap song to signal that a black male is still standing here. If I were a white male, the music and I was a targeted individual, the music that would be playing from these cars would be country music, rock music, or another type of music that is more associated with white males. That lets the stalkers in the area know it is a white male that is standing here, and he is the target. He is the mark. Now, I don't know of many Asians that are experiencing gang stalking here in the United States. I don't know of many Arabs. I don't know if I've ever met a Latino targeted individual, although Miami-Dade County, where I presently reside, is 85% Cuban. I don't know that I've ever met a Latino that I legitimately thought was a targeted individual. That's not to say that there are no Latino gang stalkers. It's just to say that I have not met any personally. But keep something in mind. When noise, in this case music, is used to signal out a target, that music is always going to be relative to the target's race. Okay? So, let's say I was a Chinese person here, or a Japanese person, or a Korean person standing here, and I was a targeted person. The music that would play to signal me out to other gang stalkers in the area, it would be music that a Northern Asian person is more likely to listen to. For example, they would be blasting out of their car something like maybe K-pop, which is Korean pop music, or J-pop, which is Japanese pop music. It would be something relative to a Northern Asian person, so that the people in the area that do gang stalking would know that this is a Northern Asian person standing here, and this is the target. You see, when it comes to noise harassment, the noise is always relative to the race of the targeted person. Okay? So, it has a lot to do with espionage, because people who practice gang stalking, and I'm talking practice it hard, okay? The kinds of people who practice it to destroy a person, to harm a person, to cause a person to get killed by that motorist or by that thug that they send around you or what have you, they practice quite a bit of espionage. Now, espionage is a very multifaceted thing. For example, if you are being spied on by a gang stalker, for example, and mind you, gang stalking is also called cause stalking. Okay, gang stalking goes by a lot of names. It goes by gang stalking, hate stalking, cause stalking, covert war, and community harassment. All of those are fitting names for what is practiced, but cause stalking actually applies here because the espionage is for a cause. These people aren't just snooping through your business simply because they're nosy. Yes, they are nosy, but they're nosy for a reason. There's a cause for it. So in my particular situation, I know that my emails are hacked. I know my social media pages are hacked. Okay, I know my tablet is hacked. I know my text messages are hacked. Okay? That's run-of-the-mill elementary levels espionage. Okay? Any goofball that knows how to hack computers can hack somebody's tablet. I'm not okay with being hacked. It's a violation of my civil rights, but I see that it's happening, and apparently there are federal liaisons that are using taxpayer dollars to help these goofballs do that. But I would like to add something to this too, because like I said, this is a very multifaceted phenomena here. So I am okay with law enforcers hacking my electronic devices. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with military personnel hacking my mobile devices. I'm okay with that. The reason I'm okay with that is because military personnel and law enforcers have sworn an oath of service to do their jobs. So that means that they have a level of accountability to them. You see, so if they're hacking if they're in we call them intrusions into my data, okay, it's for all intents and purposes at this point political reasons. Okay, because the things that I say about gang stalking carry political significance whether anyone likes it or not. So if there are intrusions by law enforcement or the military, we'll say the Department of Defense or the Department of Justice, into my data, I would rather have people who have sworn an oath of service to the state or to the federal government doing that than some Joe Blow schmuck who just has access to hacking equipment doing it, so he can find a way so he can find a way to harass me more easily with his Joe Blow schmuck friends. Okay, that I do have a problem with. Okay, now, I'm going to say this too. Given the nature of what I talk about, and given the lack of reliable information on the internet about gang stalking, mind you, as far as I'm concerned, giving a lot of what I've read other alleged targeted individuals write, a lot of the stuff they write is outlandish, buffoonish, and counterproductive to the cause of eradicating this program, which I'm sure there are politicians and DOD, DOJ representatives alike that are basically scoffing at what I say. Well, you're going to be in this for life whether you like it or not. Okay, because it's designed to be a lifelong program. But that's okay. They're going to have a lifelong political enemy in me then. They're going to have a lifelong administrative enemy in me. And I'm going to talk about this forever, and I'm going to let the whole world know how disgusting it is. So if they want to continue persecuting this gang stalking campaign stuff against me, let them. I'm going to keep letting the world know how disgusting it is. But I digress. I know what I write about gang stalking is true. So I don't mind people from the Department of Defense or the Department of Justice gathering my data. Because as far as I'm concerned, they're gathering the truth about what they represent as DOD, and DOJ representatives. Another stalker to my right. This is not a coincidence. So the Department of Defense and the Department of Justice are not on my crap list with respect to gathering my data. And the reason they're not on my crap list is because they have to be paid by the state, the federal government, or a combination of the two in order to do what it is they do. So they have some level of accountability in what they do. So ultimately, these people that think that they're playing some video game with a person's life, I'm just going to be 110% honest with you. You fucked with the wrong one. Okay? You thought that you were going to unleash this technological hell on some know-nothing black couch potato. That's what you thought that I was. But in reality, you were messing with God himself. And this is why this hell is coming down on you on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blogger, YouTube, LinkedIn, okay, Live Journal, Flickr, Tumblr, okay, Blue Sky, Snapchat. Alright? So many social media platforms that I am so proud of for opening their digital corridors to what I have to say about constitutionality, the rule of law, and inalienable rights, particularly with respect to gang stalking. Okay? And, you know, if you're a social media exec at any company that has witnessed my project and gave it the green light, I would like to acknowledge your service. Not just to my country, not just to your country, but to humanity. Okay? Now, ultimately, all people, according to various religious texts, are made in the image of the Creator. I personally believe that humans are an ancient creation. I happen to believe that we were created with similar DNA to apes to keep us humble. Okay? We're much more intelligent than apes, but we have similar DNA to them. And in my estimation, by design. Because yeah, we can outthink an ape easily, but our DNA connects us to them. So humans can never be that far above the animals that they rule over. You see? Another biker coming up. As I said before, you're going to see a lot of this. You're going to hear a lot of this. Because the signal has already been made. So, because I am of the mindset that humans are while we retain ape-like qualities, some of us more than others, we're made in the image of the Creator. So that makes us extensions of God. So if you screw with another person, particularly using the state as your anchor, you're messing with God. Period. I'm not totally of the mindset that people have evolved. Okay, that just doesn't seem very feasible to me, quite frankly. I believe we are an ancient creation, and we were given our faculties as they are by an ever-intelligent being. I don't necessarily believe that the holy books that we have on the earth right now. All right, here's some more rap music. Like I said, this rap music is strategic. It's letting the stalkers in the area know that this black person is still standing here. Like I said, when it comes to street theater, when it comes to this noise signaling, it oftentimes includes music, and the music is always relative to the target's race. So I'm going to continue on. In the image of the Creator, man was created. I do believe that in the image of the Creator and in the image of creators, man is but a bug crawling around on a surface. The ones that cultivate their soul to the point where the Creator's attention is grabbed, those are the ones that have decent afterlives. Okay? To sort of condense Bible narratives down into a couple of sentences. That's the goal. Now, getting back to cause stalking, this espionage. There's an old saying that goes, know your enemy. So at some point, I became someone's enemy. They won't look me in the face and say what the cause was. They might send street theater or some other cowardly, degenerate thuggery to indicate what the reason was. But at some point, I became someone's enemy to the point where they were able to activate state-funded resources to disrupt my daily movements in a violent, thuggish, and degenerate way. Now, they got to know their enemy, because apparently there's more to me than they thought there was. Whoever it was that leveled this gang stalking foolishness upon me thought for sure they were going to crush me with it. They didn't realize that I had the faculties not only to figure this out, but decimate it verbally and communicate it to various third parties in such a way that would make it look like the foolish tomfoolery that it is. It's nothing I want to be a part of because it's ignorant. It's wasteful. It's deleterious. It is the negation of constitutional rights and liberties, as well as inalienable rights, which are rights that no man, woman, child, company, or government can ever legally infringe upon. And this is supposed to be the freest country in the world. That's what it's been billed as for 60 years now. This is the freest country in the world. It's the shining city on the hill. It's the country all other people all over the world wish they could live in. Okay? It's possible that 9/11 changed that. Right? 9/11 had an effect on the national security apparatus in this country that changed the way the law is interpreted. I guess because a plane being used as a missile going into the side of a building, which somehow collapsed, I still to this day don't know how. It doesn't, I mean, the physics behind the collapse just don't make a lot of sense to me. Although I've seen the explanations as to how it was supposed to have collapsed. But like I say, I don't think anyone with common sense can look at those buildings collapsing as the result of those planes going into